Paula Smith. I am going to be talking about industrial benchmarking. This is basically another way to do research. So I will begin. So before I start, one of the things that I would like to say is that endeavoring to create change in education, we sometimes adopt the mindset that if research can show that practice A is better than practice B, that is sufficient grounds for one to try the new practice. Now, that sounds really simple, kind of like a simplistic, thought process or perspective. So the problem with this is that the simplicity of this mindset is not reconciled with the actual process of doing research in education, according to Hargreaves and Fullen, 2009. When we look at research, we see that research isn't met with a lack of complexities. There's always something that we have to contend with in doing research in education. Such complexities can be that of many variables, many issues to deal with, wicked problems, etc. A question that I have is, have you ever wondered about the origins of educational research, of how it was structured? That is the first question that came to mind or comes to mind in doing the the research and the background information on this particular topic. The way we approach educational research, it's like that of medicine. Basically, historically, the educational system has adapted or has, just drawn from the way medicine does research. Similar to medicine, we seek to correct or treat an issue. That's basically what we do. We, for instance, try to come up with interventions to problems. So in essence, we're trying to fix, we're trying to treat something that is going on, that wicked problem, so to speak. Now, the concern here is that this method or this framework, it's really easier in medicine and as it is in the educational system. So a little bit more as to why this is a problem or why this creates a problem in education. Some obstacles to this tension with research investigation, unlike that of medicine, are that there are so many variables, and that's what I mentioned earlier, to contend with, such as in education, we deal with budget issues, environmental issues, socialization issues of our students, and cultural issues, etc., when pursuing resolutions in the education system. Hargreaves and Fullen mentioned the following from their study. Okay, and this is a quote: "There are too many variables interacting with one another in too many ways to produce a strong conclusion." And that's found on page 118 from our Change Wars book. A methodical approach that can be adopted to support mirroring that of medicine is that of random assignments of subjects to treatments. For instance, this method is easy to utilize within the framework of instructional practices, such as assessing the effectiveness of teaching young children to read. The obstacle to conducting research with random assignments that I found from the reading is that investigating the effectiveness of an entire national education system, that can be a problem. Also, the variance in system design can also explain results. And these are obstacles with regards to conducting research with random assignments. The second question that comes to mind is, what are the differences in system design? Since we just spoke about design earlier, what are the differences in system design that account for the variations in national education performance? And how would we find the answer to that question? So, to respond to that question comes the perspective or the framework of industrial benchmarking. And that is a research method for education. That is our 21st century method for doing research in education. Industrial benchmarking, it's the idea of one industry entity learning exactly how another industry competitor is able to thrive and be successful, with the goal of ultimately superseding that competitor. In other words, one is looking to improve their current system. So there's a problem. We spoke about treating problems. In this case, this is a method that allows the education system to improve upon their current system. For instance, Xerox and Ricoh. That's an example that was mentioned. Ricoh is the Japanese competitor for the American Xerox company. And we will see later on exactly some things that occurred with regards to these two competitors. So I've mentioned a little bit about what industrial benchmarking is in the previous slide here. Let's talk about what it is not, because we have to eliminate in order for us to get a full understanding of what it really is. So industrial benchmarking is not replication. So we don't go to another person's country and copy exactly what they're doing because they're so successful. We do not blindly copy what is seen. The process that's involved or that entails with the industrial benchmarking is that first, teams get together to plan and they configure. So there's planning involved. They match performances. Okay, so when we talk about matching performances, for instance, with that of the US, the US and with that of the other country, in this case, for instance, with that of Xerox and that of Ricoh. We also figure out how to do better, how to surpass it. We also study our competitor. We study. We also visualize how the other company's system works, and that's found on page 126. We then pick out the best features, right? Because remember, we're not copying, we're trying to surpass and we're trying to improve, and we're not trying to do things blindly, right? We look for the bright spots from the other competitors' success. How did they do it? How did it work for them? In the case, for instance, in the case with Finland's education system, developing a focus in the area of high technology and creating a highly educated workforce is what set them apart. Something else in the process is that you have to talk to the country's informants. Another process is mixed in American contributions. So we mix in some of our own country's contributions to that process. And when we speak about informants, we're also referring to the people, the experts within those countries. We've spoken about the process. Now let's take a look at the steps to benchmarking. So we translate a business approach for education. So how the National Center on Education and the economy does it. That's what we want to take a look at. The first thing that's done is you choose countries to study. The question is, how do we choose countries to study? What is the criteria? How do we arrive at, well, what are we going to study? Thailand versus South Africa, or so forth and so on. We look at countries that have at least one part of the picture right, not just at least one part of the picture right, but that are also doing that part very well. Okay? We also look at what's called league tables in international comparative studies of school age education systems. So this is another source. We look at these studies to see really how these educational systems are performing. And this is by Tucker, 2009. Another step to industrial benchmarking is that we build a library of relevant data, information, and analysis. Okay. In doing so, we're seeking out a broader range of information to collect and analyze the data. Another step to industrial benchmarking is that we identify in-country experts. Earlier, I spoke about those informants. Those are the in-country experts. And in doing so, the country informants are knowledgeable about issues that the other country is interested in. Another step is that we build a framework. So in building a framework, this is a process of making adjustments and modifying a previously existing perspective against the new information. Then we pick a team. So you've got to pick your team. These are all steps. And in picking your team, we like to assemble a team of no more than 3 individuals that is comprised of a school practitioner, a school principal, and or a superintendent. Then we have to prep our team. This involves, in prepping our team, it involves some debriefing of information, building a framework for the team as well, to build a framework for the team as well. And another step is that we allow enough time to get confused. And then if you are lucky, to put the whole picture together. So finally, we're going to look at limitations and implications to successful benchmarking. Okay. Cultural differences are very great and can impede upon the transference of success from one country to another. So when we speak about the transferability of innovation from one country to another, we have to factor the whole concept of culture and how culture function. We have to factor in the concept of discourses as well. While our education system would like to enjoy high levels of skills and knowledge in core subjects, there might be the drawback of compromising our norms, because different countries, we all have a set of norms that we subscribe to, okay? Such as being free thinkers and non-conformism. as well. So, for instance, one country may have a problem with being a free thinker versus another country may not have an issue with that. So, that is what we also have to factor in when we are um, collaborating, when we are enlarging our configurations, when we're building a network system or networking internationally. Another thing is that cultural differences should not prevent us from studying systems in other countries. While we have to keep this as a focus, while we also have to use it as a caution as to how we are going to conduct ourselves and conduct this type of research and how we're going to benchmark, we should not let it be an obstacle. And this is found on page 131. These same authors reflect in their study, and this is a quote, "If we want to match or exceed the performance of our most able competitors, then we have no choice but to study how they do it." That's exactly what it says. And of course, the reference is here. It is found at the end of my slide presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.